Snapdragon. Snapdragon is a processor series made by a company called Qualcomm. The very first Snapdragon processor was the Snapdragon S1, which was released back in November 2007. It was mainly designed for smartphones and portable devices, and back then, it was the first mobile chip to reach a 1 GHz speed. But today, they have reached the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, which uses their new Oryon cores built on a 3-nanometer process. What makes this processor special is because instead of using the standard ARM cores that everyone else uses, Qualcomm now designs their own custom Oryon CPU architecture. This is combined with the Adreno GPU, which is widely considered the best for mobile gaming because it is very efficient at handling high-resolution textures. Another important thing is that Snapdragon was the first to integrate a dedicated ISP image signal processor that supports 200 megapixel cameras and 8K HDR video recording, which is why Snapdragon phones usually have the most advanced camera features. In terms of performance, the newest Snapdragon 8 Elite can reach an insane speed of 4.32 GHz, which is currently the highest clock speed in the Android world. In terms of the tier, you have the 8 series for high-end phones, then the 7 and 6 series for premium or mid-range phones, and the 4 series for budget phones. MediaTek. For a long time, MediaTek was just seen as a cheap option. They started making mobile chips in 2004, but back then they were only for basic feature phones. But today they have the Dimensity series, which was first launched in November 2019. These processors are built using TSMC's nodes and use something called all-big core architecture. So what makes this tech different is that while other chips use small efficiency cores to save battery, MediaTek packs their flagship chips with only large high-performance cores like the Cortex-X4 or Cortex-X925. This allows them to reach a really high multi-core speed for heavy multitasking. Also, MediaTek is unique because they use the Mali or Immortalis GPU, which was the first to introduce hardware-based ray tracing on Android, even before Snapdragon did it perfectly. In terms of raw speed, the latest Dimensity 9500 can go up to 4.0 GHz, making it a monster for benchmarks. MediaTek has 2 main series, which are Helio for budget phones and Dimensity for 5G performance. In terms of performance, the Dimensity 9000 series can even beat Snapdragon in some benchmarks. But the but here is that most developers still optimize their apps for Snapdragon first. So if you use a MediaTek chip, you might still see some minor glitches in heavy games. But of course, this is exactly why MediaTek phones are cheap and become a good choice if you want high speed for a lower price. Apple A-Series. Apple's A-Series is a processor designed by Apple for their own devices. The first one was the Apple A4, which was released in April 2010 with the first iPad. Since Apple controls the hardware and the software, these chips are very efficient. This is possible because they use a custom 64-bit ARM architecture and a massive L2 cache. The difference in tech here is that Apple's cores are much larger and wider than the standard ARM cores used in Android phones. This allows them to process more instructions per clock cycle. One thing you should know is that Apple recently launched a new laptop called the MacBook Neo. What makes this laptop special is that it is the first Mac to use an A-series chip, A18 Pro, instead of the M-series chips. Today, the A19 Pro, released in late 2025, has reached a clock speed of 4.04 GHz, making it a single-core champion. In terms of performance, they can even run AAA console games natively. But of course, even with all that power, since iPhones don't have a big cooling system, the chip will still start to throttle if you play a heavy game for a long time. So this is more suitable for people who want a device that can last for years without slowing down. Exynos. Exynos is Samsung's own in-house processor, and the first one was the Exynos 3 Single, launched in June 2010. The tech inside is unique because Samsung recently started using AMD's RDNA graphics architecture inside the chip. The latest Exynos 2600, launched in early 2026, uses a 10-core setup and reaches speeds of 3.3 GHz. This chip also packs a powerful NPU that can do 59 trillion operations per second, which is why Samsung phones can do high-end AI photo editing right on the device. But even with that, it still uses more energy compared to Snapdragon. Tensor. Google Tensor is a custom chip for Pixel phones that first launched in October 2021. Google didn't build this for raw gaming speed. Instead, they built it for the TPU, Tensor Processing Unit, to handle AI tasks. The Tensor G5 reaches a max speed of 3.1 gigahertz, so the tech here is focused on machine learning rather than raw CPU power. This is useful for things like Magic Eraser or real-time translation. But of course, if you try to use it for heavy gaming, it's still going to be lagging compared to other flagship chips. Kirin. Kirin chips are made by Huawei's subsidiary, and the first one was the Kirin 910, launched in early 2014. Since they are blocked from using the latest global designs, they use their own Taishan cores and Maliun GPUs. The newest Kirin 9020 can reach speeds around 2.3 gigahertz. The difference in tech here is that Kirin is built to be a unified architecture, meaning it works almost like an Apple M-series chip to connect Huawei phones, tablets, and laptops seamlessly. They aren't as fast as Apple yet, but they are very efficient because they are custom-made for Huawei's Harmony OS. Tegra, NVIDIA. Tegra launched its first chip in February 2008. You won't find this in many phones anymore, but it is the processor inside the Nintendo Switch 1 and 2. The newest Tegra, T239, used in the Switch 2 is a massive jump, using 1,536 ampere-based CUDA cores. This is possible because it uses NVIDIA's actual PC graphics technology, so it supports features like DLSS, which uses AI to make games look like 4K, even if the hardware is small. It's built specifically for gaming performance, and even though it's old tech by PC standards, it still performs well for handheld consoles because of its high-quality NVIDIA drivers. Intel Atom. Intel Atom was first announced in March 2008. The main difference here is that Intel uses x86 architecture, while almost every other mobile chip uses ARM architecture. This was a big problem because most Android apps were written for ARM, so they had to be translated to run on Atom, which made the phone slow and drained the battery. Intel officially gave up on Atom for phones years ago and replaced it with the Intel Core Series 3 in April 2026 for budget devices. Today, you'll only find Atom chips in low-power essential devices like smart meters, digital kiosks, or restaurant payment machines. It's basically the weakest mobile processor on this list, so you definitely don't want this for daily use. Oh yeah, and I also made some other cool videos about every Intel and AMD CPU explained too, so don't forget to watch it later.